Fraser Clark destroys and demolishes Ebenezer Tetteh in the very first round. He is back. Big Fraser is back. Yeah, get him back in the mix. Give him to Adelaide or TKV. But ideally, he needs to keep active, and those two still need to bloody rematch. But yeah, big win there for Fraser Clark. Really glad Big Fraser's back with a bang. He needed that. I thought he'd come back and I thought he'd look awful tonight. But he proved me wrong. He looked good tonight, Fraser Clark. Took a big shot early on, woke him up. All right, ready to go. Then Clark comes back, massive looping overhand, gets to Tetteh, knocks him down. Gets back up, fair play to Tetteh, but then Clark finished him off in that first round. Clark and Dubois finished Tetteh off in the first round. Dillian White went bloody 7 with him. Are we questioning Dillian White? Could he be a good fight for Fraser Clark next? No, look, I think Clark looked good, did what he had to do. Would it have been ideal for him to get rounds in? No, I actually think that is the right, proper, good outcome that he would have wanted. There would have been a lot of self-doubt for Fraser Clark before coming to this fight. I know that for a fact there would have been. But no, he's calmed it all down now. Everything going on about him getting properly beaten up badly against Wardley. Shuts it all down. Proves, was it a fluke? We'll have to wait and see what happens in Clark's next few fights. But look, I'm glad he won. Another Brit still going, luckily. And there's some big fight nights to make for him from now. But yeah, I think Clark set his backhand up behind his lead hand very nicely. That is what he does do. Comes out with a nice double jab, which Clark can get through. That's what he got through on Tetteh today. Tetteh's wild, but I thought Clark used his footwork nicely, being able to get around Tetteh and his wild movements that he does do. But Clark was able to catch him over the top. And, Tetteh was getting countered a lot by Clark in that fight when Clark was able to get that jab through after Tetteh threw a wild shot. Clark was, quick on that jab tonight, which was good to see. But, the backhand was very good, showing his power once again. And that is a very good confidence booster for Big Fraser after seeing that, to be completely honest with you. He needed a performance like that, and that is what he got against Ebenezer Tetteh, who, against Dillian White was very, very, very durable. But no, Clark completely sparked him out with the big first shot that he fully landed flush on Ebenezer Tetteh. He was able to clean him right out with it. So, yeah, a good performance there from Fraser Clark. Get that jab going to the body, jab upstairs, move about nicely. Eventually, he found a very nice overhand. And, yeah, there we go. Night to Ebenezer Tetteh. What is next, though? What is actually next? Because, obviously, I did mention Adelaide or TKV, but they need to rematch. And, we need to see that. I really want to see Fraser Clark versus David Adelaide. That's the fight I want to see. I think that's a huge fight, a good fight for the British title, that for Clark to get back into the mix on British level wise. That's what Clark needs to be doing now. He is 33 though, so I think he needs to take as big fights as possible, in my opinion. Fraser Clark. He hasn't really got time left on the side, but as heavyweights they can go longer. I'd quite like to see Fraser Clark fight Nelson Heiser next. That could be a good fight. If Clark gets through him, then I think, that is when we could see David Adelaide, TKV, those kind of fights. But, I mean, again, though, could we see a Fraser Clark, Joe Joyce fight if Joe Joyce continues on? I would not mind seeing that at all. That's if David Adelaide or TKV and Clark doesn't happen, it could be Joe Joyce. But I think, ideally a fight before that for Fraser Clark could be good. I wouldn't mind seeing Fraser Clark go up against someone like Jermaine Franklin. I think that could be a good test for him down the line. Again, we just need to see him in big fights, in my opinion, for Fraser Clark. That's just what we need to see. And then, someone like Hughie Fury springs to mind. I don't think Hughie Fury is actually a real high-level guy anymore. That could be one. But again, I wouldn't do that next, though. That could be one for the future, is what I'm saying, though. But it's going to be interesting to see how Ben Shalom does manage Fraser Clark from here on out, though, because I do think that, on paper, Tetteh was a very good guy to get back in for Fraser Clark because, he looked good against, well, I wouldn't say good or anything like that, but he looked very durable against White, someone who could have gave Clark a few rounds. It was tough. but he didn't. Clarke blasted him out of there and won. Did, better than what I expected, and I think what many others expected as well, and looked more himself in there. And it looks like, there's a bit more spike to Fraser Clark now. And I feel like with that knockout that he had against Wardley, where he got knocked out, obviously, as we know, dent in his head. And I think that's made Clarke think, I might take a few more risks here now. I might want to take a few more risks. I've been knocked out before. Let's just do what I can now and let's just take more risks. And that's what Clarke looked to do tonight, because before, we look at his performance against Marius Wack, went the distance there, and, Wack was there for the taking for Fraser Clark in that fight. We saw a Talma blast him out in like 2. Against Dave Allen, Clarke could have done a better job than what he did. That is the thing I do question. But that is what he had to do. That is what he had to do. He had to make a statement there. And that's exactly what Fraser Clark was able to do. And I'm really bloody glad that he did. So, yeah, all good stuff there in the end for Fraser Clark. A very, very, very good and important win over Ebenezer Tetteh. And yeah, let's see what's next for Fraser Clark. But, he's got an interesting career to follow, in my opinion. He definitely does. But, get some good hype back around him. That's exactly what he had to do. Anyway,